Looking here at the second printing of Gloom of Kilforth, I came late to this game, only playing it recently, and you can see here from the box the awards that it has won, and certainly there are no lack of videos on the game. I'm going to be discussing the game in this short video, not doing any gameplay and certainly not going over the rules. There are ample videos, excellent ones out there on it, and frankly I think they're needed because the rules are a little bit confusing, at least they were to me. What is of note is on the cover here of the art, and we'll see again many videos have demonstrated and shown how gorgeous the art is throughout this game. What's of note here to me on the rulebook cover is the fact that this is an unpopulated space, that it is and looks very empty of any type of creatures, people at all. And despite the fact that in this game, as you play through it, you encounter many people, strangers, allies, and you yourself, of course, are playing a character. And we'll look here a little bit. I've played the game with a bunch of different characters. The first time I played as this vampire. And I will say that the skills that you get, or the attributes that you get as the character, though there aren't very many to differentiate. So in this case, she and each of the character cards has the same stats. You could play either as a male or a female. I played in this case as the woman vampire, the female vampire. The vampire will regain some health points after they defeat an enemy. So very thematic, simple but thematic, and it works to differentiate the characters. So if you're playing as the half-elf, at the end of when you're breaking camp, when you're beginning the day, if you're at a plains location, you will gain an action point. You will have something additional to do from other people than the half-elves. On the other hand, if you're the dark elf, you have a capacity to sacrifice an ally that you have to gain health because you are a dark elf, and you can do that once a day. So you can see that the characters really are differentiated. They're standard fantasy tropes, and this is of note because, and here are some of the classes. You have a priest, the rogue, the warrior. Again, somewhat stereotypical. The warrior is going to give you a fight benefit, for example. You have an assassin who's going to give you a sneak benefit, as well as, I can't remember what this is called, I think it's a knowledge benefit. So standard tropes for characters that you're playing, yet the feel of the game, despite the fact that you are playing, and as a solo player you have the capacity to play one player, which is what I prefer to do and have done, it felt very much like I was alone in a world, and that was both good and bad, as we'll see. You are able to select any number of stories, or sagas as they're called here, that is the overarching goal that you're meant to do as you travel through the land. You could take the fortress or assassinate the Lord. There's a Casket of Souls saga, or the Dragon's Hoard that you're trying to find. These are fairly grandiose titles, but in effect what you're trying to do to move through the chapters in the saga, or to move through the story, is to successfully obtain cards with the matching keywords to allow you to travel through the story, and then ultimately get to a reward that is going to be in your possession if you can successfully obtain it, and will help you in battling one of the ancients that you will battle at the end, in effect the boss monster. So that is the overarching goal, and we'll take a look at the end game here. It's all very modest when you look at it this way with the text, but looking at the end game, you'll see how it is so visually rich at the end of the game, and how you build up into this environment that is quite stunning. Here we are looking at the end of my game, and I can't even get everything in this one picture, and I also didn't have the cards, the boon cards, set up properly. I just had them in a stack because I ran out of room. It is a fully developed world that you end up traveling through and revealing parts of as you go. Part of the reason that there are so many revealed cards here that were unexplored by me or unattempted to get by me has to do with the random factor of this game. As a card-based game, obviously you don't have control of, well, it's a shuffled card-based game. You don't have control of what cards come out when. And in this particular case, what I needed to worry about for the Abbess of Penance, who I was ultimately trying to battle, what I needed to worry about was any unresolved quest that came out onto the board that I did not address, because that would give that enemy benefits at the end when I was fighting. As it were, during the play of the game, I marked with this token and this token, which are not meant to be used for this purpose, but I marked with these two tokens the quests that had come out. All these other cards that came out on top of the locations while I was playing, none of them were quests. So I didn't really have to address, by the time I got to the end of the game, I didn't really have to worry too much about this because I kept pulling in. I have stranger, a place, another stranger, another place, more places. It just was the way the cards came out. And that aspect of luck, in that case it was my good luck, helped me to not have to worry so much about the enemy, the boss monster, building up during the course of while I was traveling around trying to find the last card keyword that I needed. And that's the downside of this luck, because what I needed to get to the end, I had trouble finding. I can't remember, I think it was the villain card. I had the demon in the place in hand as rumors, but I wasn't turning up villain cards. It just wasn't happening and wasn't happening. And this is where the randomness of the game, I think, does impact the feeling of the RPG element, which otherwise is fairly well developed. What works quite nicely in the game is the feeling of, it's not even leveling up per se, and you can see here the leveled up character. I was collecting a lot of gold at the end because I had a benefit that would allow me, one of the skills that I chose was local hero, so I could pay a gold to gain plus fight till the end of the battle round. So I was going around trying to get as much gold as I could. You do, or I did, really feel like I was improving this character, learning with this character. The skills that I gained didn't just feel like, quote unquote, leveling up, a mechanical thing. It did feel very thematic. That worked excellently, and the more I traveled around, the more I tried to slowly struggle to get more benefits for my character, more items, more skills, obviously, as I progressed through the saga. That was extremely effective, and it did feel like an RPG where you are doing things, gaining experience, and progressing through levels. And it felt that way as a story element and not just as mechanics, as some games do. A lot of these so-called RPGs in a box that I play, the way in which the game design attempts to get that feeling is by giving you just more and more and more and more stats, or stats that are so variable. You don't really get that here. You do get some more stats, but you're not bulking up the stats per se, but you are getting thematic changes to the character. That's really effective. However, what took me out of that sense and identification with the character and my abilities that were increasing was this element of, some people would call it luck, I'm calling it randomness of the cards, or like lack of control of what's coming out with the cards. Because it doesn't make sense to me thematically if I am trying to find a villain, if I need this if I need this keyword villain here that I can't find and I'm wandering around. If I am more skilled, if I have been in this world, as I have, you can see, I've traveled through a lot of this world, a lot of time has passed in this game. Many, many days have passed, so we only have a few days left. If I have really done all that, why am I unable to find a villain? The only reason why is because the card is not coming up in the stack. And that's where I think there's a little bit of a breakdown out of the contained world of the story, where the game mechanic inserts itself in a kind of problematic way to take you out of the story. And following along those lines, I want to say that because of the use of the keyword mechanic to advance through the story, that you are trying to obtain these keywords to advance, it puts pressure on you to use the other characters that you may discover, the allies or strangers, for their keyword value, as opposed to what they could give you to develop your character. And to some extent, that is part of the decision making of the game. Am I going to hang on to this to use it as a keyword, or am I going to put it into my hand to use it as an asset and improve my, or grow my party, say, of people, let's call it that way, and continue exploring around. But because there is the timekeeper in this game, which is the night cards that turn over to give you a time-limited amount of gameplay in this space, you are trying to manage that. You need to try to manage that to obtain your goal, because you have to be able to get to complete this saga before the time runs out. Again, that is a little counterintuitive to creating this feeling of an overland adventure where you are wandering around and you have a quest that you can do or not. And that is obviously a very conscious design choice to make the gameplay move ahead. But as far as the RPG feel, it does take away a little bit from that, because I found myself with some very interesting strangers and allies in my hand, and I'm sort of like, well, I have it for the keyword, I need it for the keyword, let's move on. And I think if I had a wish for the game, it would be to offer an alternate way to play or move through the story, where there was more of an exploration type of way. Now, that's adding a whole other level of game design, I realize, but there is so much richness and so much care that has been put into really every card. It's not just the art, but what the cards do, what the keywords actually are, and how you interact with them. Every single card here, and obviously there are hundreds of them, is so thoughtfully designed. It almost seems like a shame to just, on some level, disregard all of that for, okay, there's armor, I got it. Here's a place, I got it, move on. And not to be able to interact more with that place. Of course, you could choose to do that by simply continuing to interact with the place and disregard a major mechanic of the game, which is the passage of time through day and night. Certainly you could do that if you wanted to, but that's not how the game is designed. And I should hasten to mention, this is not part of the game, nor is this. This was the character I was playing, and this represented the boss monster. It was just easier for me to keep track of that than using the tokens that come with the game, which are designed as this. And it does get, as beautiful as the art is, it can get very messy at the end, as you can see here. Overall, this is for the solo gamer. If you haven't picked this up yet and you are interested in an RPG feel to a game, a storytelling feel, this offers it in many, many ways. I do think that the mechanics and the random nature of the cards and the structure, the foundational structure of the rule set, does sometimes compete with the feel of the character that you're getting, the character generation, the wandering through a land that is very successfully implemented. But there is a bit of competition there, and that can feel frustrating at times. That said, I I have played the game repeatedly since I got it, and it makes me want to go back and experience it again because it is that involving, and the art does go quite a long way to mitigating some of the mechanics that feel a little bit like they're drawing you out of the world.